Out in the silent dark of space, where stars burn like distant candles, a message has just shattered the calm of the Galactic Empire. The human fleet, the one every admiral, every strategist, and every data model warned about, hasn't even deployed yet. And still, entire systems are falling quiet. No battles, no invasions, just silence. For an empire that once believed itself invincible, the idea that a single species could bring such fear without firing a shot is unthinkable. And yet, it's happening. It began with whispers from the edge of the outer rim, a colony gone dark, then another. Patrols sent to investigate never returned. Reports trickled in of strange signals, encrypted in human code, but carrying frequencies that no machine could fully decipher. The Empire's analysts said it was psychological warfare, a bluff. The humans couldn't possibly have the reach or power to strike this far. After all, their main fleet was still stationed around Sol, unmoved. But when an entire star sector vanished from communication overnight, no one could deny it any longer. Something was moving out there, something unseen. The humans had always been underestimated. To the Empire, they were newcomers, reckless, emotional, obsessed with freedom and defiance. But those very traits made them dangerous. Where other species built slowly, humans adapted fast. Where others obeyed, humans questioned. And when pushed, they didn't retreat. They evolved. The Empire had crushed countless rebellions before, yet none had the sheer unpredictability that humanity carried like a weapon. They didn't fight by the book. They rewrote the book. Now, every Imperial commander was on edge. Fleets gathered at key sectors, waiting for a confrontation that refused to come. The humans were quiet. Too quiet. Intelligence reports said their ships remained docked, their admirals silent, their transmissions minimal. And yet, results spoke for themselves. Mining worlds abandoned, supply lines severed. Even mercenary guilds loyal to the Empire began switching sides, claiming that humanity offered something better than control, hope. On the capital world, deep within the shining halls of the Imperial Council, the High Chancellor demanded answers. How could this be happening without a single human battleship leaving orbit? How could an empire that ruled thousands of systems be losing ground to a species that hadn't even begun to fight? No one dared to say it aloud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. Maybe the humans had already found a way to win without fighting at all. Some said it was technology, an invisible network capable of overriding imperial systems. Others believed it was psychological, a new kind of warfare meant to collapse the empire from within. But those who'd encountered human envoys firsthand told another story. They spoke of individuals, calm, determined, impossibly certain that something far greater was coming. Not destruction, not conquest, but a reckoning. And somewhere, far beyond imperial sensors, in the quiet orbit of a forgotten moon, the main human fleet waited, motionless, engines cold, weapons idle. Orders had not yet been given, but when they were, the galaxy would never be the same, because the humans hadn't deployed yet, and still the Empire was already breaking. The Imperial fleet drifted through the black, its countless ships glinting under the light of distant stars. Inside the command decks, officers whispered to one another, voices low, eyes darting to flickering data screens that told them less and less each hour. Entire relay stations were going offline without warning. Navigation beacons vanished from the network. No explosions, no debris, just gone. It was as if the void itself had decided to erase them. In the war rooms of the Empire, the mood had shifted from arrogance to disbelief. Every report began the same way. No contact, no resistance, no trace. The analysts ran simulations predicting that if the trend continued, the Empire would lose 1/3 of its territory within the next cycle. But no one could explain how. There were no signs of fleet movements, no battle reports, no confirmed human strikes. It was as though humanity had become a ghost in the galaxy, present, unseen, unstoppable. The humans had once been an afterthought. The Empire had discovered their home system barely 2 generations ago, a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable star. At first, contact was polite. Trade agreements, exploration pacts, the usual prelude to control. But humans were unpredictable. They learned faster than any species the Empire had encountered. They copied technology, improved it, and then turned it back against its creators. Where most civilizations took centuries to rise, humanity had leapt forward in decades. And with each leap, they grew quieter, more focused, more unified. No one in the Empire had understood what drove them. The data archives described humans as emotional, fragmented, even self-destructive. Yet, somehow, those same qualities became their strength. They didn't need perfection. They thrived in chaos. They could lose everything and still find a way to win. And now, that same relentless adaptability seemed to be working against the Empire in ways no one could predict. In a small outpost on the edge of Imperial space, a young officer stood alone at her console, staring at a blinking red icon on her screen. It wasn't an attack alert. It was a message. Simple, short, and terrifying. 3 words, repeated in every known human language. "We are awake." The officer froze. The signal wasn't coming from a ship or a planet. It was coming from within the Empire's own network, echoing through every communication relay. Within hours, the same message appeared on every Imperial broadcast frequency. Civilians panicked. Military leaders scrambled to shut it down, but every attempt failed. The signal wasn't just hacking their systems, it was speaking through them. Each time they blocked one source, 10 more appeared, each perfectly timed, perfectly placed. The humans hadn't fired a single weapon, yet their presence could be felt everywhere. Rumors began spreading through the lower ranks. Some said the humans had created a digital consciousness that could live inside machines. Others claimed they'd mastered quantum communication, allowing them to exist in every system simultaneously. But among the soldiers, a quieter fear took hold. That maybe this wasn't technology at all. Maybe it was something deeper, something human. Meanwhile, far beyond Imperial space, aboard a massive silent carrier orbiting the moon of a gas giant, the Human Command Council watched in silence. No one spoke. The main fleet remained motionless, its weapons cold, its engines dark. They were waiting. For what? No one outside that room could know. But every officer there shared the same expression, calm, focused, and certain. They had already started the war, just not the kind the Empire understood. And as the message continued to echo through the stars, the Empire began to realize a terrible truth. The humans hadn't vanished. They were already everywhere. The Empire's leadership was fracturing. In the Grand Council chamber, voices clashed as admirals, politicians, and scientists argued over what to do about the humans. Some demanded an immediate strike, deploy the full fleet towards Sol, crush them before their influence spread any further. Others warned that it was already too late, that this wasn't a battle that could be won with ships and plasma cannons. Each new data report made the situation worse. The message, "We are awake," had become more than a phrase. It was spreading like a living thing, finding its way into every terminal, every public display, every military database. It didn't just disrupt, it learned. Every time the Empire tried to delete it, the signal came back stronger, smarter. In the midst of the chaos, whispers of human collaborators began to surface. Entire crews had vanished from Imperial ships, leaving behind perfectly functional vessels with no trace of struggle. Some believed the humans were recruiting from within the Empire, appealing to those disillusioned by centuries of oppression. Others thought something darker was at play, that humanity had found a way to influence minds without ever being near them. The truth remained hidden, but the fear was real. No one could be trusted. On the other side of the stars, a small human scout ship drifted near the edge of Imperial territory. Inside, the crew monitored intercepted transmissions with quiet focus. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were observers, tasked with watching how the Empire reacted when faced with the unknown. One of them, a communications officer with a calm voice and tired eyes, leaned forward as she read the latest report from the network. "They still think this is a virus," she said softly. The captain nodded. "Good, let them. The longer they fight shadows, the less they'll see what's really coming." Back in the core systems, life inside the Empire was changing. Entire cities shut down as panic took hold. Civilians hoarded supplies, afraid that the next blackout would be permanent. Propaganda networks flooded the airwaves, blaming rebels, pirates, anyone but the humans. Yet beneath the noise, a quiet curiosity grew. People began to question the official story. Some even started searching for the human message deliberately, as if hoping to find something more than fear. Something true. Among the Imperial fleet, one ship stood apart, a dreadnought stationed near the frontier, commanded by a decorated admiral known for his loyalty. He had fought dozens of campaigns, crushed rebellions, and enforced the Empire's order for decades. But as he stared at the flickering message on his bridge screen, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: doubt. The humans weren't behaving like conquerors. There was no demand, no ultimatum, no promise of destruction. Just that one line, pulsing in steady rhythm across the console. "We are awake." It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a warning. Meanwhile, in the hidden human command, quiet conversations filled the air. Some officers wanted to strike now, while the Empire was disoriented. Others argued that the real victory wasn't in battle, it was in changing how the galaxy thought. To show that power didn't always come from control, but from unity. The fleet's leader listened, saying little, eyes fixed on the distant glow of stars outside the viewport. The decision ahead would shape the future of two civilizations. And as the Empire's networks flickered, as messages multiplied and alliances wavered, one thing became clear to both sides: the war had already begun. It just wasn't the kind of war anyone had prepared for. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Every Imperial outpost, every warship, every command hub was on edge, waiting for a move that never came. Yet the sense of inevitability grew heavier by the hour. Reports flooded in of entire fleets rerouting themselves in confusion, planets cutting power to avoid exposure to the human signal, and communication officers refusing to touch certain frequencies for fear of contamination. No one could predict where the next disruption would occur, or how devastating it might be. The humans were everywhere and nowhere at once. In the heart of the Empire, the High Chancellor convened an emergency session of the Council. Faces were pale, hands trembling, eyes locked on the central display that showed the spread of the human message across Imperial space. This isn't a normal invasion," one general admitted, voice barely audible over the hum of the chamber. "They haven't fired a single shot, and yet they've destabilized half our systems." Murmurs of agreement and disbelief rippled through the room. The Chancellor clenched his fists. "Then we act differently. We adapt, or we fall." Across the void, the humans continued their quiet observation. Fleet vessels remained stationary, weapons offline, engines dormant. Yet inside every ship, crew members trained relentlessly, not for immediate battle, but for the perfect moment to tip the scales. On one bridge, a tactical officer monitored Imperial sensor arrays. "They're moving toward panic," she reported. "Communication breakdowns, supply disruptions, entire sectors refusing orders. The fear is spreading faster than any fleet could." The captain nodded, silent. Their plan wasn't brute force, it was precise, patient, almost surgical. The first signs of open conflict were subtle. A routine Imperial patrol entered a sector that had gone dark. Sensors picked up a fleeting energy spike, too brief to classify, too coordinated to be natural. The patrol crew reported strange readings in the data, signals interlacing with the ship's own systems, almost like something alive, probing, learning. The officers hesitated, unsure whether to engage or retreat. When they decided to move forward, their engines stuttered for a moment, controls lagging. The signal faded, leaving them shaken and uncertain. It was the first taste of human influence in the field, and it left a mark deeper than any cannon blast could. Meanwhile, on the Imperial homeworld, civilians and lower-tier officers began experiencing the message in more personal ways. Screens flickered in homes, holograms repeated the phrase, and even personal devices carried the subtle echo of the human presence. Fear and fascination mingled. People who had spent their lives obeying the Empire were now questioning everything. The humans hadn't invaded physically, but the impact was undeniable. The psychological pressure was mounting faster than any blockade or bombardment. In the hidden human command, discussions grew urgent. Leaders debated the timing of the next phase. Some urged immediate action, believing the Empire's instability could be exploited. Others advocated patience, insisting the Empire must unravel further on its own. Outside the viewport, the fleet remained motionless, an enormous, silent force, radiating quiet inevitability. No one on the human side underestimated the danger. Even as the Empire faltered, a misstep could turn the tables instantly. As Imperial forces scrambled, patrols misfired, and sectors went dark, the tension reached its breaking point. Across star systems, captains gripped their consoles, soldiers waited in silent corridors, and leaders whispered frantic orders. Somewhere in the void, the humans were watching it all unfold. One simple phrase continued to echo through every system: "We are awake." It wasn't a threat, but it was a warning, a heartbeat in the dark that promised everything was about to change. The galaxy had barely begun to recover from the initial shock when something new erupted across the Imperial systems, something no one had anticipated. Outposts that had gone silent for weeks suddenly reappeared, sending frantic reports of massive energy surges, impossible ship movements, and signs of human activity where none had been detected before. Entire fleets reported that their navigational systems had been manipulated, not destroyed, not hacked, but moved. Ships appeared in coordinates they hadn't plotted, sometimes drifting harmlessly, sometimes in dangerous formation. It was as if the humans had discovered a way to bend the very rules of space, turning the Empire's own assets against itself. Inside the Imperial High Command, panic spiraled. Admiral after admiral watched as ships under their direct command vanished, only to reappear in sectors they hadn't been authorized to enter. Supply lines became a maze of dead ends. Convoys reported their escorts suddenly missing or positioned incorrectly. Even the Empire's elite reconnaissance drones, sent to map human positions, returned with incomplete or corrupted data, as though the very act of observation was being warped. The human fleet still hadn't fired a shot, yet it was orchestrating chaos on a scale no one had imagined. Meanwhile, whispers began spreading of human emissaries appearing in the most unexpected places, on planets, aboard stations, even on board Imperial ships. They didn't attack. They didn't demand surrender. They simply observed, offering solutions to fix systems or prevent disasters. Solutions that seemed harmless but subtly destabilized Imperial command. Some officers, desperate for control, followed the advice without question, only to find themselves inadvertently aiding the humans. The Empire was unraveling from within, and it wasn't entirely clear where loyalty ended and human influence began. On the outskirts of the galaxy, the hidden human fleet maintained its silent posture. Fleet officers reviewed reports, noting the unexpected consequences of their actions. "They think they're regaining control," one tactical officer said, voice calm. "But everything we've done has forced them into tighter formations. Panic spreads faster when people feel they have nowhere to turn." The captain nodded, eyes on the distant glow of Imperial space. "The humans are always 3 steps ahead," another officer murmured, "even when they appear to do nothing." It was a quiet acknowledgement that the Empire's arrogance had underestimated them once again. In one Imperial system, a newly appointed governor faced the impossible. Planets on the rim were breaking contact, Entire civilian populations disappeared from sensor scans, and rebel uprisings flared seemingly spontaneously. Reports indicated no organized human strike, only hints of subtle, coordinated interference. He ordered immediate retaliation, deploying a battle group to restore order. Within hours, the ships themselves seemed to resist the fleet's commands. Engines malfunctioned at critical moments, weapons systems froze during drills, and communications looped endlessly, repeating messages that were never sent. The governor's frustration grew into fear as he realized the humans weren't just destabilizing the Empire, they were rewriting its reality. Back in the human command, a council member watched the Imperial distress signals, then glanced at the fleet in orbit. "They still don't see it," she said softly. "They think we're preparing to fight. They don't understand. We've already won the first part. This is about control, about their perception, not destruction." Outside, the massive ships glinted under starlight, motionless yet alive with potential. And as the humans' subtle manipulations spread like a virus across Imperial space, the Empire faced its greatest fear, that the humans were no longer just a threat to fleets or planets. They were a threat to everything the Empire thought it controlled. The message pulsed through every system once again, louder, clearer, undeniable. We are awake. The galaxy teetered closer to the edge, and no one knew how far it would fall before the humans finally made their next move. The tension that had gripped the galaxy for weeks finally snapped. Across Imperial space, fleets that had been drifting in confusion suddenly found themselves immobilized by systems they could no longer control. Ships stalled mid-orbit, weapons locked in standby, and comms channels filled with the same haunting phrase, "We are awake." For the first time, the Empire's leaders realized they weren't just facing a threat. They were facing a force that could think faster, move more strategically, and anticipate their every move without ever lifting a single weapon. In the command center aboard the Imperial flagship, alarms blared as navigation grids failed and shields flickered. The admiral, who had once relied on cold precision, now pounded on consoles in disbelief. "How is this possible? Where are they?" he shouted. Across the fleet, similar cries echoed. The Empire's power structure, the very backbone of their authority, was unraveling. And then, in a single synchronized moment, the humans revealed themselves, not as an overwhelming barrage of firepower, but as a unified, coordinated presence across the galaxy. Every system that had gone dark reactivated, every stranded fleet realigned perfectly. It was not destruction the humans brought, it was mastery over order itself. On a silent human command vessel orbiting a distant moon, the captain gave a simple order: "Engage!" And though the fleet's engines remained cold and weapons idle, the effect was immediate. Imperial ships, previously scattered and disoriented, began moving under new guidance. Communications stabilized, but with subtle changes. Humans had rerouted data, optimized fleets, and restored balance, but on their terms. What the Empire saw as chaos was actually a test, a demonstration of human capability, ingenuity, and restraint. The High Chancellor, now staring at the holographic display, finally understood. The humans hadn't needed to destroy Imperial forces. They had outmaneuvered them completely, forcing the Empire to confront its own weaknesses. Systems that had been controlled through fear, through intimidation, through rigid command, now functioned because humans had shown a different kind of order: collaboration, adaptability, and foresight. Imperial admirals realized that they had been outplayed in a war they didn't even know had started. Civilians across the galaxy experienced the climax in quiet, unassuming ways. Blacked-out cities lit up, communication grids restored, supply lines stabilized, and rebels cautiously lowered their weapons. People realized that humanity's strength wasn't in weapons or numbers. It was in influence, strategy, and the unshakable confidence of individuals acting together. The galaxy had been shown a power far beyond conquest. the power of awakening potential. Yet, just as the Empire began to comprehend the scale of what had happened, a new signal emerged. Unlike the previous message, it wasn't a warning. It wasn't even a phrase. It was a pattern, a geometric rhythm of energy traveling through every network, every fleet, every sensor. It pulsed with intelligence and intent. The humans had revealed their mastery, but now, something else, deeper and far older, stirred in response to their presence. The last thing anyone in the Empire, or even the human fleet, saw before silence returned was a glimmer on distant sensor grids, an enormous, unidentified structure emerging from beyond known space. It radiated an energy signature unlike anything recorded, dwarfing fleets and planets alike. The humans had won the first battle without firing a shot, but whatever was coming now suggested the galaxy had only just begun to awaken. And in that moment, everyone understood the truth. The war they thought was ending had only opened the door to something far greater, far older, and far more unstoppable than either humans or the Empire could imagine. The sudden appearance of the massive, unidentified structure hung over the galaxy like a shadow, but it did not spark immediate destruction. Instead, it forced a pause, a moment of reflection for both humans and Imperials alike. Across fleets, across planets, across command centers, people stared at the readings and realized the scale of what they were facing. For the first time, survival depended not on aggression, not on domination, but on understanding and cooperation. The humans had taught the Empire a lesson they could not ignore. True power was not in firepower, but in knowledge, strategy, and patience. Imperial leaders began to reconsider their approach. The fleets that had once scattered in confusion now moved with renewed purpose, not in pursuit of conquest, but in cautious coordination with human guidance. The humans did not seek revenge, and they did not demand surrender. Instead, they offered clarity. The galaxy was changing, and those unwilling to adapt would fall behind. Systems once ruled by fear now operated with efficiency born of cooperation. Subplots that had seemed disconnected, the vanishing fleets, the corrupted communication grids, the mysterious appearances of human observers, revealed themselves as part of a single, deliberate strategy. Humanity had reshaped the galaxy without firing a shot, turning chaos into a lesson for everyone who thought control came from dominance. On board the human command vessel, the captain addressed the officers. "We didn't destroy them. We didn't conquer them. We showed them what we can do when we work together." The crew exchanged glances, a quiet satisfaction in their eyes. They had won not by brute force, but by intellect, adaptability, and unity. Across the void, the Empire's leaders began to internalize that lesson. Arrogance and fear were no longer reliable tools. To survive in this new era, understanding and collaboration were essential. Meanwhile, civilians across Imperial territories cautiously resumed their lives. Cities powered up, communication networks stabilized, and supply lines flowed once more. Communities that had feared human domination realized that the humans' true victory was in demonstrating potential. The potential for progress, for cooperation, for thinking beyond old hierarchies. Even the whispers of human collaborators dissolved, replaced by curiosity and cautious respect. The galaxy was learning that humans were not conquerors. They were catalysts. The mysterious structure, however, remained beyond known space, a reminder that the galaxy still held secrets far beyond anyone's understanding. Sensors could only capture glimpses of its energy, but it was clear that it was ancient, intelligent, and potentially powerful beyond imagination. Both humans and Imperials watched it silently, knowing that the next chapter of the galaxy's story had already begun. Humanity had won this battle, but the universe itself still held mysteries that no fleet, no empire, and no strategy could fully predict. As systems stabilized, fleets reorganized, and leaders reflected, one truth stood out. The galaxy had changed forever. The humans had awakened not only the Empire, but the potential in every civilization to think beyond fear, beyond domination, and beyond what seemed possible. The message that had echoed across every system, "We are awake," was no longer a warning. It was a promise. In the stillness that followed, the galaxy held its breath once more. The humans remained a quiet presence, patient, vigilant, and ready for whatever came next. And somewhere, far beyond known space, the ancient structure waited, pulsing with possibility. The story had reached its conclusion, but the lesson endured. True power comes not from control, but from vision, adaptability, and the courage to awaken.